I work at a call center and I had a call with a dead person. Part number 2. Hello everyone, this is Eric. I have some things I have found since my last post. Last night I went to the place where the call came from and I explored the area. I will be explaining in great detail, so maybe some of you can help me make heads of this. It started when I woke up around 3 a.m. I got a call from the same lady, but this time I decided to actually answer it. At first, it was just static and someone breathing heavily. Eons went by with this breathing and static. However, this time I didn't feel any anxiety but sadness. An overwhelming wave of despair and grief washed over me as I listened to her labored breathing. As I cried, I was assaulted with visions of her and looking through the past in her point of view. I felt her skin and I could hear her thoughts. It all started when she woke up and looked around for her husband.
Where is he now? Out drinking still? I'm worried about him.
She thought to herself quietly. Her heart was aching and I could feel the pain of distrust from the husband being gone. She stood up and walked downstairs to look out the window to see if his car was there. When she opened the blinds, more sorrow and disappointment. I could feel the weight of her emotions and the tragedy that this simple action had left on her. The sun was bright and stung her eyes, and I felt the pain too. I saw the street where the Google car was because in front of the home was the well with a single hanging bucket, but it looked old and unused. She sighed and continued to the living room. The room was decorated with different moon shapes and stars. Pictures of the moon were on her wall. She sat down and turned on an all-console TV. The news was playing and the moon landing was a success last night. She was feeling excited to hear this. It was akin to a childlike wonder. Then she thought to herself,
Who would have guessed we land on that rock?
I could tell this meant a lot to her, and I felt happy for her. A warming moment in this cold ocean of loneliness she has been feeling. She sat there a little bit longer, listening to the TV broadcast, until her husband stumbled through the front door, drunk and agitated.
What are you doing there, sitting on my couch, you worthless woman? Get on the kitchen and make breakfast.
He hiccuped and slurred his speech, but she understood him. A part of her was happy that he was safe, but the other half was scared he was safe too.
Honey, don't you think you need to...
Before she could finish, he backhanded her hard and knocked her to the floor. The resentment of the man she once loved and cared for diminished further as she cried on the floor, holding her face in pain.
I didn't say for you to talk back or to think, woman,
he said with a fit of ferocious anger. The malice in his voice shook me to the core, and I felt her fear and pain as she stood up silently and went into the kitchen. She grabbed a pan from the cabinet and turned on the stove. She then grabbed the butter tray from the fridge and she placed half a stick in the pan. She pressed the lid to the tray to her face. The cold porcelain lid was cooling and a little calming and helped soothe her body and slowed her racing mind. She grabbed some eggs and started to cook them.
He would want them over easy.
She thought, staring into the pan, thinking of her past. He wasn't always a bad person. In the beginning, he was sweet, a young man who would protect her at all cost. One moment she was working at a drive-in and a guy stepped out and groped her. She was helpless and she was on skates and had no real momentum to pull away, so all she could do was cry and scream, which made the man even more aggressive. Her soon-to-be husband jumped out of his car and yelled,
"Get off her, you creep!"
The man looked back and yelled, "Huh, what you gonna do? This ain't your broad, why do you care?" Her husband walked to the man and punched him square in the jaw, knocking the man down, which made the girl fall. Her husband, with a smile, stood over her with his hands up and then said,
"Now, leave this lady alone, or we will have further problems. You got it?"
The coward creep stood up and ran to his car to quickly speed off.
He didn't even pay.
She sat on the ground trying to fix her blouse.
"Sorry about that creep. What's your name, Mom?"
He said as he reached his hand out, and she grabbed it. He lifted her with surprising strength for his build and gave her a handkerchief.
My name is Mary. What's yours? My knight is shining amour.
He laughed.
"I'm hardly a knight, but my name is Terry."
The flashback ended as she was brought back to the moment that she was in now. Terry was fast asleep and snoring loudly on the couch. She was crying, seeing how her relationship started, to how it ended, breaking her body, her mind, and soul. The pain on her face was dying down, but the emotional trauma it left was long-lasting. She finished the meal and brought it out to him on the couch. She went to wake him up and noticed a phone number written on his palms and a hickey on his neck. He smelled of perfume that she never owned. Her sadness and anger were overwhelming and her mind was racing. She somehow shook it off as nothing she didn't expect and woke him up with a smile.
Hun, here is your ex.
She said timidly.
"Just leave it there and leave me alone."
He snarled at her, but then went back right to sleep. She spent the rest of the day cleaning around him and not saying anything to him. His face was a constant state of annoyance, and it seemed off. Later that night, he left, and she slept on the couch since her bed doesn't even seem welcoming anymore. She woke up to a loud noise in the middle of the night. The clock rang 3 times as her husband Terry burst through the door, drunk and angry. He jumped at her, pinning her down as another woman came in and duct taped her mouth. She didn't recognize the woman, but she had a bright blonde hair and a small scar on her cheek. Terry tied her wrists and feet together before dragging her to the well and lifting her over his shoulders. The pain and fear she felt were intensified by the downpour of rain outside. Without saying a word, he tossed her into the well, and on the way down she hit her head, knocking her out. She woke to a heavy sloshing and something heavy and wet landing on her lap. It was concrete. She looked up in abject horror as concrete poured all over her in waist-deep water. She was freezing cold and crying, but she couldn't scream. She could only reach for the sky, begging for help. She tried to stand, but she was already covered up to her chest in heavy cement, and she had no energy. I could feel every bit of anguish, fear, and anger that she felt as her husband Terry betrayed her and is now sealing her alive in this tomb. As the cement piled on, her breathing became more labored, and she started to lose consciousness again. In one final effort, she shoved her arms over her head and stuck them to the wall. She died from asphyxiation. The pain of drowning or asphyxiation was so great, it felt like her lungs and body were on fire, while her muscles spasmed and her brain started shutting off body parts to preserve oxygen. I woke up from her visions and I was covered in sweat. She said one last thing over the phone.
Help me, I'm stuck.
I replied with anger and determination. Don't worry, ma'am. Terry will not get away with this. She replied with a simple thank you and hung up.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I stood up and I typed the address in my computer and saw that it was only about 30 minutes away, and I started to look up where Terry may live. A newspaper article showed that Terry Campbell has filed for a missing person for his wife Mary Campbell. He was in the bar at the time of her disappearance. If you know anything, please let the authorities know. A small black and white image of Mary was next to the article. That's her. It has to be her, I said to myself. I got in my car and I went to the side of the old home and I looked around the area. It was all overgrown with the wall I saw earlier. It was already knocked down, but the well was still there. Although it was dilapidated, I could see into it. Inside the well was a small amount of water, and it was only about 4 feet deep. That's like 1 meter 30 centimeters. I jumped in carefully and bent down. The skeleton fingers of Mary lay just above the cement, and her gold ring was still on the finger. Something in my body felt peace, as if Mary wanted me to help her and find her. I grabbed her ring and I carefully climbed out. I grabbed her ring and I carefully climbed out. The ring was beautiful and still shiny, as if it was brand new. Inside were engraved the words, Amor in aeternum. I don't know any Latin, so if anyone knows this, please let me know. The calls have stopped, and now all I have to do is look for this guy and see where he is. My God, I'm not sure how to handle it or how to approach Terry. Hell, he may be even dead by now. Anyway, she may be stuck still, but I will give her the peace that she deserves. Until next time, this is Eric.